Hello and welcome back to the Jules with Jim podcast. I am your host GiGi and I hope you're well. If you're new, welcome. I'm honored to have you here. And if you're returning, I'm humbled to have you back. And to all my new subbies, welcome. You are the VIPs indeed. And thank you ever so much for the support. And if you have missed it, I am continuing my Planets in the Houses series. So if anything might be confusing to you, please do go check out my previous videos where I break it down even further. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. So this week, of course, I'm delving into the fifth house. So to me, the fifth house is all about creativity. However, I feel that creativity, or at least in my opinion, can be described in so many ways, which can include, creativity in artwork, creativity in music, how we express ourselves through fashion. The creation of children is also a creative outlet or a creative expression. If we really think about it, when it pertains to childbirth, it's literally one's genetic impression being mixed, for lack of a better word, with another being to form one being or two or more, depending, how your genetic expression is formed. Because, we've got people with twins, triplets, and etc. So, once a baby is born, it starts to undertake your understanding of the world. And what better way to exercise one's personal power, right? Other than through creativity, other than through some form of creation. And that is what the fifth house is all about. Besides, the fun and games and the whole socializing aspect of it, that is really what the fifth house is about. Creative self-expression, or expressing yourself creatively, whichever form you choose to undertake. So I cannot stress it anymore. Fifth house is about creation, and it includes any sort of creation. So let's break it down even further and what this means for the planets in this house and how the energy changes in every single way pertaining to the planet that could be in that house.
House number 5, planets in house number 5. Let's go.
So the sun in the fifth house. The sun in the fifth house is pretty dope energy. This is the natural house for the sun. So, it's kind of at home here. It's literally like stepping into a comfortable pair of slippers, right? That have the foam sole. I don't know if it's called the foam sole, but for lack of a vocab right now, we'll just call it the comfy sole, the what is it actually called? Now I'm trying to go through my mind and I'm going through my mind library and I'm trying to find the perfect description, but it's not coming to me. But it is what it is, and it is how I explain. It's like basically putting on a comfortable pair of slippers. So, if you have this placement, you're just meant to be in the spotlight and you're just meant to own it, right? You're meant to be in the spotlight. The spotlight loves you. And unfortunately, of course, it can sort of irritate other people around you, because it's like, they might feel that even in situations where you're not really supposed to be seeking to be the center of attention or to be in some sort of a spotlight, you can do it excessively, like even when it's not necessary. But of course, everybody has their feelings towards others. So, it's quite natural in this world that we're living in. So, here I think the sun really seeks to fulfill its vitality through artistic pursuits, relationships that pertaining to romance, and also true love as well. I know in synastry, and synastry is just basically a chart between two people, which I also do. So do definitely contact me for that if you're interested. In synastry, when we find the sun in the fifth house, it just means that there is a natural affinity. There's a basic level of friendship. There's a basic and genuine level of love that is expressed between the two people. So I like to see this in synastry. I even like to see this in an individual as well. Because it's like literally everyone loves having you around, right? You're basically like a glow of light. People appreciate your ability to express yourself through these activities, and your sense of existence really comes through when you are in pursuit of any of the creation activities or any of the creation pursuits. So your sense of existence, like I said, comes through when you're doing these activities. You just exude this confidence. And how you do this is just dependent on which sign the sun is in. But just having the sun in the 5th house makes you a native who's kind of just very conscious of the smallest things, and you're just inspired by those little things as well to create, and that, creates an even bigger creation. So definitely a fun placement to have. Moon in the 5th house. With the moon in the 5th house, I already love the sound of this actually, because it's like emotions meet creativity. Right? And isn't that the perfect definition of creation? We do need to be moved in some way emotionally, right? For us to get our creativity across. Otherwise, then it just seems like it's not genuine, right? To get our art across, our writing across, our feelings need to have some sort of an outlet where it can express themselves. You guys get what I mean? You get what I mean? So, even in the ways that we create, we do sort of draw a sense of healing from that, because it's like whatever emotions that we may be going through, we are able to let them go or detach from those feelings when we do create, right? And that is essentially how we heal. When we release things, we heal. When we talk, we heal. When we write, we heal. When we create, we heal. As I've been saying, I can't stress it enough. But it's almost like we peel new layers of ourselves and kind of put it out there. And that's what I think the moon in the 5th house really feels like. And even at times, if you have this placement, you may feel like what you create is just not good enough, or it's just not relatable. And I think that is totally okay. I think it's important for the moon to remember that it's totally okay. Or even when your feelings sort of change towards your creations, it's totally okay. You're just going through the motions. You're going through the phases of what a typical moon goes through, right? I've said this before in my previous videos, where I always say that the moon is constantly going through phases, right? The moon is constantly going through phases. So I think it's really important for somebody who has this placement to understand that you will be inspired to do something and then feel a different way soon after that. And that's completely okay. That is the nature of the moon in any house, really. That is the nature of the moon in its essence. So, the part of being an artist, any art is to create. And yes, sometimes, it's met with vulnerability where you need to kind of just expose yourself, and also insecurity as well. But just put the art out anyway. I can, for the most part, also understand where the pride comes in, because of course the pride in yourself, the pride in your work. And, when one puts it in that way, one can sort of understand why the moon in the 5th house would act the way that it acts in certain situations. So I think, create anyway, no matter what you're going through. I think it's best that you have an outlet to kind of express yourself and not try and dim those feelings down just because, of what people might think. Think about what you feel. Think about what you think about it first. And that's the only thing that should matter. Venus in the 5th house. Everybody and anybody would love to have this placement. And if you are fortunate enough to have this placement, then it's kind of not hard to see why everybody just guns for it and everybody just simply loves it. We're talking about Venus. Venus is the planet of love. It's the planet of fun. It's the planet of harmony. It's the planet of balance. And if you have Venus in Pisces in the 5th house, oh my gosh, I am truly envious of you. Yes, Venus in the 5th house means, a genuine and pure love for all creation. That's what it means. It's like a love for love or of love, a love for children, love of art, and also a fine eye when it comes to creative expression. So that might be, this might be somebody who's really into maybe doing makeup, doing beauty, or this may be somebody who's really into fashion, or this may be somebody who's really into creating fashion, like creating designs. You may be into even interior design, anything that requires you to kind of make things kind of beautiful and nicer. This is definitely right up your alley. This can make you extremely talented, or just have a talent with children, or just have children that are quite talented, or, you just happen to be the person that's you just really support, any kind of art that just touches your heart. And when it relates to relationships, you're kind of seeking balance and harmony for the most part in your relationships. Of course, depending on what sign Venus is in, this will obviously be different, but you do seek a sense of balance and harmony. And, this is... and if this is not offered, then that's when boredom can kind of surface, and then you start getting a bit irritable and you start losing interest. So, but it's also important to note that your interests lie in many different forms of art and creation and different types of people. So you'll definitely always have people around you that are interested in getting to know you. You might have a lot of friends that are quite, artsy fartsy. There's a lot of possibilities here, and there's also a string of admirers. So do watch out for that. If you're not really somebody who likes to be in the spotlight, you just generally have to just get used to it, because you just exude that energy, right? So you enjoy socializing, and getting attention is just not that hard. You might just step into a room and there's probably half of the room is already attracted to you. So that's something to look out for. But accept it for what it is. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. You can't help that you are, how can I say, socially beautiful or socially attractive. So, you may also love hosting social events, or you may even enjoy throwing these events yourself, because you have a love for, socializing, you have a love for meeting new people. So this is definitely an aspect that I truly love to see as well. Mercury in the third house. Well, here comes the saposexual, ladies and gents. When it comes to games and hobbies, you're probably into chess, maybe some crossword puzzles, 30 seconds, anything that kind of stimulates the mind, you're pretty much game. And the pun was indeed intended. Socializing is very important to you. Meeting new people is like, breathing air. This is somebody who really loves to network. Like, how in business they always say, in order for your business to be successful, or in order to be a successful business person, you need to know how to network. This is definitely the person to speak to. If you know of anyone who has this placement that is quite close to you, you would want to take this person on if you're starting a new business, because they'd be immaculate at knowing what to say, how to market it, how to promote it. So yeah, having Mercury in the fifth house is it's a stunner. It really creates waves. Socializing, like I said, is very important. Meeting people is extremely important. If you would like any children or have any children of your own, you most probably love picking at their brains, and having all sorts of like jam-packed activities for them to indulge in. You're kind of like the consequential, like fun mom. Like if anybody were to describe their mom, and if they have like a Mercury in the fifth house, this would probably be the mom that like is literally your best friend. There's like, of course there are boundaries in place, but you feel like the relationship that you have with your mother or whoever is around you, that's of a maternal figure, you feel that you really can create a genuine relationship with them. Or it might also indicate that you may be a little bit distant, or obviously it depends what sign Venus is in, but if it's Mercury is in, but for the most part, this is a very fun placement. You may regard your kids as your friends, like I just said. You may even at times just really have a hard time articulating how you feel, because you need to understand Mercury is quite a fast moving planet. It does not stay in one train of thought for very long. It does not stay fixated on one activity. It is quite mutable in its nature. Gemini and Virgo are perfect examples of this mutable energy kind of going from one to the next. And if your Venus is in Gemini, or even a Venus in Virgo might be a little bit more stable considering it's an earth sign, but like a Venus in Gemini, for example, might be kind of all over the place and, just have interests everywhere, like the jack of all trades, as I like to say. But yes, Mercury in the fifth house, you might just have a hard time articulating how you feel at any given time because it just changes, and when those times surface, I think it's important that you create, as you speak the language of art. So your interests and your hobbies may change over time, and unfortunately people who do catch your interest will just have to keep up, with your buzzing mind and your hectic schedule. But overall, brains over beauty is definitely big with this placement. Mars in the fifth house, the planet of passion, in the house of creativity, and that can only spell this: a passion for creation, whatever that could mean for you. So some people may feel like you tend to be quite aggressive or impatient when it comes to love, or that you can be competitive when you do create. Like, if you have this placement maybe and you have kids, you might be the parent that's like, oh, my kids are so great at almost everything, at almost every sport. You might just be that parent that just kind of pushes their kids to do everything possible to find that one thing that your child is good at. Or you might even do that with yourself if you don't have any kids, or even if you have people around, you may just be that person that kind of like motivates people or inspires people to kind of just like get it moving, and that type of energy can be appreciated. Sometimes it's not appreciated. It just depends, of course, how Mars is aspected and how much you actually go out on this energy, because you might end up driving yourself or even your kids or even those around you away from you because you're constantly pushing them to kind of compete with other people instead of competing with themselves and their own performance and their own standards, and remaining true to their individuality. And when you're trying to be an individual and when you're trying to express your individuality, you really can't be out here competing with other people, So, like I said, depending on how Mars is aspected, you might feel you have issues in love, especially because you're quite compulsive, and of course that might lead to, clashes every now and then with the people around you, your loved ones. So your passions are not easily or even readily understood or even welcome in some instances, and I think it's just important to note that not all activities call for competitiveness. Sometimes it's just important to be laid back and and enjoy and just really enjoy being alive, enjoy the fact that, you're still privileged to experience those activities, whatever activities it is that you are into. And all I can say really for this placement is you really should have an outlet for all that Mars energy just to kind of get it out, because pent up Mars energy is rage. That's all I can say, rage. You're just irritable, you're moody, so definitely do have an outlet. Get out, get inspired, stay alive in purpose and passion, because Mars is a busy in this house. Jupiter in the fifth house. If I didn't know any better, I'd say you probably have like 10,000 children. You're a bit of a black jack, royal flush vibes much, or you may spend a lot of your resources on any activity that just fuels you. So it's like all bets on the table kind of thing. I think also with this placement, the only thing that could be bad is just excessiveness. Too much of anything can really not be a good thing. It can be a bad thing and have less than desirable effects. So please do keep in mind to not just spread yourself too thin. Jupiter and Neptune also kind of have the same energy whereby you just kind of spread yourself too thin. Like, you have a budget of 500. Why are you spending 2,500, for example? Because this house is about creation, right? But it's about creation, it's about games, it's about activities, it's about fun times. But of course, you obviously need to have some sort of limit to the amount of fun that you can have. We all should have a limit to the amount of fun that we can have because, resources, hello, your energy levels, and you're not trying to, you're just not trying to have a nervous breakdown because you're just too busy and everywhere. So, do keep that in check. This placement also gives you a whole lot of confidence, and I think that confidence just stems from having had conversations with yourself about who you think you are, and really asking yourself the bigger questions about life and what it means. And I think that has allowed you and inspires you to be unapologetically yourself. And for you, that's pretty awesome. It's great. But I think for others, others may find it really inspiring to be around you, as your energy is quite infectious and allows them to be themselves. You encourage other people to be themselves around you. But for those who may not have had the experiences you have, or have had the conversations that you've had with yourself, it may make them a bit uncomfortable. Of course, that's no fault of your own, but you may come across as, overly confident, damn near arrogant, to those who just don't understand you. But I think it's more not understanding of self that this energy would really be projected onto you. So with Uranus in the 5th house, I'd actually love to meet your children, pick your brain, see your artwork, or even what you create, because this placement definitely spells different. Even if you don't have children, I'd like to meet you and to see how you express yourself when it comes to, however it is you choose to express yourself, whether that be through fashion, makeup, whether that be through, film, acting, whatever it is that you fancy. I would definitely love to see. I definitely love to witness and see that, because I just feel like this placement is so courageous. If you have children, you definitely encourage them to be themselves, no matter who they choose to be. There is an emphasis on freedom in all sorts of ways that you can possibly imagine. There's like freedom of self-expression, freedom in relationships, freedom to explore different types of relationships, different types of people, different types of places, different types of languages, different types of cultures, like everything, there might be even something that's quite unconventional about your relationship. So maybe some polygamy, or maybe you're the type of person that's just into a whole lot of people at the same time, those kind of vibes. But of course, it's dependent on how Uranus is aspected here. Speaking of relationships, because of your strong desire to be different, or let me just stick to different, because if I say the other word, it's just going to come out wrong. So, because you want experiences that are different, this can make you kind of sexually fluid. You can also experience relationships that really start off amazing and then just kind of end like abruptly or suddenly. There's also quite a hot and cold type of energy towards relationships here, and even in your art or form of self-expression. So today you might pitch up, in a really cool outlandish outfit, and then tomorrow you'll probably dumb it down. So it just really depends when and how you catch this Uranus energy, and you kind of play around with your look, which is also something quite nice and does inspire other people as well, because a lot of people probably ask you, oh, where did you get that dress, where did you get that shoe, or where did you learn how to do that? If it's an activity that you're really into, things, they might ask you things like that. So you may even be quite controversial, one way today, tomorrow different. And I think this is a process that just should be embraced, as it will definitely lead you closer to who you need to be. So all the spirals, all of the stops and starts are just all part of the process. So do embrace them. Neptune in the 5th house, also another awesome placement. As you're led by spirit, you're led by at times outside forces. You just kind of get inspiration from your experiences that you have or have had, whether that be in the physical 3D realm or even in other realms. But you're constantly just leading or expressing yourself through spirit. You're expressing yourself through how you feel, your emotions, and that can be through whatever means that means for you. There's also no boundaries here as to what you can create. And I don't even think that boundaries are necessary, when it comes to creation, because, you can create whatever you want. You can do whatever you want, whatever gives you a sense of being alive is what should be treasured. It's what should be nurtured. It's what should be chased. Well, not chased, but, it's what you should be doing, essentially. So, I think this also puts you in a bit of a vulnerable state as well, as it just makes you pick up really quickly on stimulants that are around you. So whether it's positive or negative energy, only you know. But I think the silver lining here is either way, it will be inspiration to create. So some of your creations may even be out of this world, like literally, I really mean that. Like, I'm serious when I say that. When it comes to romance, romance is an outlet. Okay, I don't want to put it like that. However, my vocab seems to be fleeting. That's been happening quite a lot lately. Damn you, Mercury retrograde. But it's definitely an opportunity for you to, make your dreams alive. And I think it also means that you can idealize your art, your relationships, your art, or even your choice of art. If you're into gambling, I think it's really important to know when to stop, really, because Neptune is just known, in inverted commas, to just be boundless, which can lead to some form of an addiction. So some form of addiction to romance, some form of addiction to gambling, some form of addiction to, alcohol, because obviously alcohol comes with a sort of wanting to socialize or wanting to tap into another type of energy. So, definitely do look out for that, especially I think all kinds of addictions, really. I think just note that and just be careful of that. Pluto in the 5th house. I have to ask with this placement, like, are you the type to love privately? Because when it comes to relationship, there is a very obvious but subtle energy. Like, people will be like, okay, we can see that she has a ring, on her marriage finger, but like, we've never heard her talk about, her husband or her wife. I think it's just one of those things where it's just like, it's very obvious, but it's very subtle, because there's not much that is spoken of when it comes to, Pluto being in the 5th house. Besides that though, you may really just love intensely. So whatever it is that you create, whether that be a child, artwork, a certain style, whatever it is, whatever activities you engage in, they are definitely going to be something that you're going to be doing out of passion. Because, Mars and Pluto, that's the energy with Mars and Pluto. There's a lot of passion here. There's a lot of energy that needs to be exerted out, because a lot of the times Mars and Mars energy and even Pluto energy is the only way that I can describe it is just that the energy needs to have an outlet of some sort. The energy needs to come out. Otherwise, the energy will be expressed in ways that are just not okay. And by okay, I just mean you might just end up hurting other people that you had no intention of hurting. So definitely do find an outlet. I cannot stress this enough, really. And I think all creations come from an intense, deep place. So I think even when things do go wrong, in whichever sphere of your life, I think it's really important to know and to realize that everything happens for a reason, and not to have this need to be in control of everything, because you cannot possibly be in control of everything and everyone in your life, or everyone that you choose to keep close in your life. So it's important not to be possessive and to be out of control, trying to control other people. It's also important, again, not to harbor feelings of resentment, against people who may have, yes, totally done you wrong. Like, let's not even try and undermine, your pain or what you may have gone through because at the hands of somebody else. But I think it's important that people will definitely be people, and people will choose their happiness over yours. It's just the cycle of life. And when that does happen, accept it for what it is, take it with a pinch of salt, and try and learn from it, try and heal from it, try and find ways that you can potentially deal with it, because it's going to be different for everybody. That applies across the board. Even if people react a certain way to your art or your fashion or whatever it is that you're into, take it as a difference of opinion, and that it's nothing personal. And if anything, think of it as an opportunity to probe deeper, and draw inspiration from that. So if people don't really appreciate your art, because obviously putting your art out there is quite it does put you in a bit of a vulnerable state. So I would definitely say that do not take people's opinions to heart too much, but rather see it as an opportunity to actually discover why people didn't like your art, or why people don't like that style of fashion, or why people didn't like, how you did, interior design for a home, those type of things. Rather try and ask questions than assume and have this pent up energy and hate, because honestly, it is a waste of energy. Last but not least, Saturn in the 5th house. I know this particular placement gets a lot of backlash in terms of, having issues with procreation. I mean, procreation is really a huge subject in society. And I don't even think that it should be, because there are just there are a myriad of variables to consider when one has Saturn in the 5th house. Because first of all, what if you're an individual who does not even want kids? So, procreation in the sense of childbearing is not really something that would be important to me, I just think when it comes to Saturn being in the 5th house, I think it makes you quite conservative, and quite slow to even start dating when it pertains to relationship. I think dating and romance may be something that can make you quite uncomfortable if you're not really friends with somebody, or if you don't have a long-standing relationship of some sort with someone. I think it also alludes to going through really some tough times before you truly step out into your confidence and start owning your talents. Your experience may lead to you experiencing things only later on in your life, when your inner child can now come to the surface and, run completely free. I think if you do have children, you kind of may have a sort of like a tough love type of attitude when it comes to them. And I think it's just due to you wanting to protect them, but that's of course only natural. But just don't be too hard on them just because of fear, because like Pluto, you cannot always be in control of everything that's possibly going to happen to your children. Me, for the most part, I believe that children, are borrowed to us. You are a pair with somebody else, and you're technically renting a child out, and it's an amazing responsibility, which of course it has its pros and cons, but ultimately you don't own a child. If you did, then hey, wouldn't life be great for you? But it definitely wouldn't be for those children, for those kids. So allow them to have their own experiences. They will eventually grow up and live out their own desires. So do bear that in mind with Saturn in the 5th house. So it's not really all doom and gloom when it comes to relationships. I just think relationships are not really our focus. Hobbies and things are not really our focus, because there's a serious attitude pertaining to, life's activities. Like, this could be somebody that's really just focused on their work. If they are, an artist, then they're really focused on being the best, or creating things that actually make sense or bring them an income, so it's not really how Venus would react in this house. It's not really how Mars would react in this house. It's a more serious, a more mature outlook on these types of activities, but it definitely does change later on in life. What they say about Saturn and Capricorn energy, that they only get younger as they age, which is a complete paradox, but it just is what it is. And also Saturn is it is the planet of karma, and it's the planet of time. So a lot of the times people with this placement will go through struggles before they can start accepting, having a little bit of fun and letting their hair down. So do keep that in mind with this energy. So it's definitely not all doom and gloom. Also take note of how Saturn is aspected or the ruler of the fifth house and how it's aspected. And that's all I've got for you, my tubers. A reminder, tubers, to take what resonates and leave the rest. I always hope to bring clarity in the understanding or the study of astrology, and I hope you have understood a little bit more about the planets in the fifth house. Until my next video, on that note, thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Which planets are a babe and your absolute fave? Show me some love and subscribe to my channel if you'd like, and feel I have brought value to your understanding of astrology. As always, your time spent is much appreciated. Till next time, you know what you do, so keep doing what you do. Peace, love, and most of all, light. I'm out.